morning to everybody. I'd like to start not with a joke this time, but we're telling you two facts. The big 5 corporations, I'm talking about Alphabet, the mother company of Google, as you know, Amazon, Apple, and of course, Microsoft and Meta. So the idea was that one of these companies, I'm not going to name them, in Brussels, they actually did something like an experiment. They had a big tent in La Grande Place, and what these guys did is interview people. Those guys were actually transmitting in real time what these people were telling them about their lives, their names, and so on. And there were some hackers behind the scenes with the balaclava, all of them, and they managed to crack into not only their Facebook or their Instagram profiles, but also, and that's very scary, most of these hackers managed to get into their bank accounts. So the interviewer were telling them, oh, so you know these people, and then they get a little bit more suspicious, and then they said, but you also have an account in this bank, and then they really get really scared. And then after a while, they pulled down the tent wall, and they could see that the guys were, using the PCs. There was an awareness campaign to raise let's say, the consciousness of people around cybersecurity and cyber threats. And the other fact that I wanted to tell you is that in about a few weeks, we will have the US elections. And one of these big 5 tech companies, these tech giants, have already predicted for the last 6 presidential elections who was going to be the winner of the US presidential elections. They have never failed. And how did they use this? They actually gather a lot of social media information, and they put all that information into a very well-trained artificial intelligence algorithm, and they managed to tell before that happens, but obviously for electoral and law-abiding reasons, they could not release who was going to be the US president before those elections happen. Why I'm telling you these two things? Because we're going to talk about something that might be very dry, like cybersecurity. However, it's very necessary that we raise our awareness of what we are actually posting on any social media, and how the adversaries, hackers, are taking advantage of these means to get access to our finances. So without further ado, I'm going to walk you through 4 points. First one, cybersecurity landscape. Where do we stand today? Understanding what are the cyber threats that are being used, leveraging the power of artificial intelligence. What can we do as bankers in terms of cyber resilience? And what is the future going to look like in terms of future-proofing security? Is it about quantum technology? Is it about reacting using the same tools like artificial intelligence? We will have a look at all of them. So first, cybersecurity landscape. As you know, these days, most of the threats that we have could be briefed into 4 major categories. The first one being the advanced persistent attacks. It's very interesting what happens, and I believe you know this. This is relatively, although late in time, it is very up to date in terms of what is happening now in the Middle East. Stanix, which was launched in 2010, was actually a virus that was built up by the NSA from the US and Mossad from Israel, with just one sole purpose: to get into the systems of a totally isolated nuclear facility that was doing uranium enrichment. This was part of the Iranian program to develop the nuclear bomb. What they managed to do through the help of some insider is to get this virus. Nobody was alerted about this, and they managed to, I would say, to lengthen, let's put it that way, the nuclear program of the Iranis for a long time, to the point that they still do not have the nuclear bomb. Another big issue is ransomware. WannaCry, as you may recall, that was not long ago in 2017, was probably the best example of what a ransomware is, that so many companies around the world that were using Microsoft Office solutions and Microsoft operating systems were hacked, and many of those companies need to pay a ransom. The other big one is social engineering. We will walk through that later on. There are many ways that the hackers, the perpetrators, can entice people with different methods. One interesting one is the crypto scam that happens with Twitter. They managed to hack Mr. Elon Musk profile in Twitter, also Mr. Barack Obama, the former president of the US, Twitter profile, etc., enticing people to invest in cryptocurrencies. Of course, it was a big scam. And finally, and not least important, zero-day exploit. Essentially, what the hackers do is, before any vulnerability of any software, any system is actually being detected, they're able to attack those systems and take advantage of that. Right, so what all these boils down to is that it has an economical value. And one of the most attacked infrastructures, and as you know, banking infrastructure is critical, is the financial system. We have the latest statistics from NASDAQ. This was published and released in March 2024, so it's relatively new information. About $500 billion US dollars it's been evaluated in terms of scam and global losses in the financial services industry alone. And most of this money is coming from Asia, but if you look at these three figures, what is interesting to see when you look into the dotted red boxes is that around 80 to 86% of these scams are coming from payments fraud. It's not a coincidence. As you know, everybody who uses financial services, most of the transactions that we do on a daily basis are payments, so no wonder why payments are by far the largest fraud in terms of financial services. Right, so after understanding the context, next is understanding the cyber threats, and specifically in terms of AI. So AI, as you know, is evolving extremely fast. The technology is getting to the point that it's able to perform a lot of automated tasks, even to make decisions. Chatbots, as you know, today, you go to any website, it will have a chatbot, some kind of avatar. Sometimes you may also have voice assistants when you call your call center at any financial institution. You don't get a human operator first. You get some kind of remote voice assistant. Press 1 if you want to do this, press 2, etc. You know, it's extremely boring, but that's how financial institutions try to lower their expenses in order to raise their profitability. And that's good. However, when it comes to cyber threats, what we have, sorry, I need to go one step back. Cyber threats through AI, it's becoming mainstream. And I'm going to depict you here 5 examples of a family of sophisticated cyber attacks. The first one is classic luring. We will get into that very soon. The other is cyber extortion. Very scary what the perpetrators can do with this. Generating phishing using AI, it's becoming mainstream. Similarly, as you know, deepfakes can be used using AI. for enticing people to make transactions. And finally, and this is also something that not many people might be aware of, unless you're a cyber professional, but using large language models, like for example, ChatGPT, you can actually crack a website and try to detect what vulnerabilities they have. Let's go and deep into these 5 examples. First one, classic luring. What is this? Well, over the past months, we have detected a lot of cases where people, with the hype of ChatGPT, they were trying to download their application or the program using the computer, and guess what? Some of them were even enticed to buy ChatGPT, but ChatGPT is offered for free. But not many people knew this in the beginning. And people were actually making transfers using PayPal and the likes in order to get something that was completely a fake. And as you can imagine, mirroring a ChatGPT look-like website is extremely, extremely easy. The second one is multifaceted extortion and ransom. Let's go into what we mean by cyber extortion. It's essentially targeting individuals in both ways to ask for a ransom. The example, these 2 examples are real. The first one about cyber extortion happens with a gentleman who happens to be a top executive of a large company, and he was having an affair, and he happens to put in his corporate PC adult videos about the affair with the lady that happens to be an employee of this company. Somebody detected a vulnerability. They get into the systems, they get into the email systems, email accounts, and he asked for a ransom. Not very, very large one, $5,000, otherwise he would release these kind of videos to all his contacts. So not only is something that will kill your reputation as a person, but also it's very important for a company because the company was involved. Not necessarily knowingly, but the case is that it boils down that it also affects the reputation of the company. The other one, and this is something which is extremely scary, is multifaceted cyber extortion. This is a deep web website called Lockbit, the 3.0, so there were 0.2 and 0.1 versions before, and it's like a supermarket where you get all these leaked data, and as you can see in the boxes, you have some that are with 2 different titles, one in blue, in navy blue, the other one is white, and one is exactly telling you how much time do you have. So it makes you a lot of pressure. How much time do you have before they will release the data? So you need to pay the ransom beforehand. The other one is they're making you to compete, you, the victim, to compete against hackers who are bidding like in any auction for the leaked data, so that they will pay the ransom and utilize a posteriori the data to commit more frauds. And this is happening today in the dark web. Another example, and I believe you're aware, I'm going to tie this example with something that happens not a long time ago in a company in Hong Kong with the next slide about deepfake. So what this gentleman is actually advertising, you might not be able to see, but essentially there's a hacker that is advertising a user guidelines for making phishing using ChatGPT. Okay, so essentially to make a message like a corporate email completely flawless in terms of grammar, it looks like a business, very professional email, and he's teaching how to use it. So something similar actually happened in real life because this Hong Kong company, the guy that was in charge of treasury has to, if I'm not too mistaken, I think it was something in the range of $25 to $30 million that they transfer to a bank account that never existed. He was actually cheated first using some kind of Outlook invite to get into a video call, and that video call actually never took place, but what happens is that the perpetrators used also deepfakes to recreate a video call that never existed. And he saw the man, and those characters were not fictional. He could recognize his teammates, his co-workers. So this means that it took a lot of time to investigate, to research who were working in that company. They also look into how to get into the system, etc., etc. This is happening today. Another example, and this happened with SWIFT, the international transfer system. The Bank of Sri Lanka, the National Bank of Sri Lanka, was attacked. They were aiming for $400 million at the first cut of several transactions. Then they realized that it would be less suspicious to start with $100 million, and they managed to cheat the system. There was somebody who subsequently saw that the next transaction was going to be for more money, and they became suspicious. And thanks to a little grammar defect, the beneficiary account was called Foundation, and they misspell it, and that raised the suspicions, and they stopped the transactions. Otherwise, they would have not been able to do so. So human factor, this is what I would like to get to, is very necessary in order to stop these cyber threats that are using purely automated techniques. And talking about automated techniques, this is also very interesting. This is an example of LLM having techniques. So essentially what you do is you ask ChatGPT or the likes, we will see later, that using SQL injections or other techniques, please do look into vulnerabilities of this website. And look at these three evil assistants that you can see in the bottom part: Fraud GPT, Chaos GPT, and Poison GPT. They're able to provide you with bugs, to provide you with anything that any bad actor or perpetrator can do it on a very automated way. In the old times, they would need to be in front of their PCs for long hours. Not anymore. Even you can actually look and provide a prompt to look for vulnerabilities. You can do this for your company, for the benefit of your company, or the bad guys can do this for their own benefit. And this is happening today. Right, so after looking into everything, what else can we actually do in order to prevent these attacks? Well, cyber defense today is a multifaceted approach. We need to have a multi-pronged strategy, not only in risk assessment, but also talking about threat intelligence. We will see that later. Layered defense, employee training, and cyber incidents response. This is the classical approach. And I'm not going to talk about risk assessment or layer defense or SERP, because that's what any cybersecurity professional will do. But what happens with threats intelligence and employee training? I think this is key. In our case, for instance, my institution gets more than 1,000 cyber attacks per day. We know that because InfoSec also cheat us with links that I can tell you, they look very, very genuine and legitimate, and still they're just testing us. So training your employees is very necessary. But if you're working for a financial institution, as important as training your employees is training your customers. I cannot tell you how many times we have gone across with PIN numbers that are 0000 or 1234, or the birthday date of the person who is the owner of that account. That should not happen. That's part of password hygiene. This needs to be addressed as part of your, let's say, corporate social responsibility, or even just for reputational purposes. You need to fence off not only your systems, but also your customers, as I said. Right, so this is about employee training. Now let's move into what is going on in terms of future-proofing. Right, so what is happening these days, essentially, let me get back to this one. It's cyber intelligence. I mentioned earlier that one of the biggest and most profitable tools is to anticipate what is happening. And for that, you need resources. Either you have them internally, or you use many facilities like ENISA from the European Union, the EU CERT from the European Union, the AIC from the US. You have many cyber intelligence centers that are actually sharing their information. And this is critical. Why? Because they're actually looking into suspicious activities, suspicious events, people that are attacking, let's say, Western values, that are anti-capitalism. All these guys tend to be the guys that end up, trying to hack financial services systems in order to obtain money. Identity protection, how do you do that? Well, there is a website called deepweb.com. Okay, sorry, deepfake.com that exists in the deep web. I can tell you, I've seen it. It's scary. You can mimic, and it will be impossible to see or to recognize the difference between a true passport and a fake passport. Just by providing your photograph, they will recreate with whatever number, whatever security number, with whatever passport number, with whatever identity you want to have. This is happening today, and this is something that maybe financial institutions, especially the small ones, do not have the capacity to do so, but they can benefit about what is happening out there. And as part of this, the bottom line of this pyramid is actually what you should be doing, or somebody should be doing in your place if you are connecting to these systems, like understanding and listening to social media, open source intelligence, and deep and dark web sensitive sites that needs to be monitored, not only by law enforcement agencies, but also by companies or by centers that are like NGOs, and they do this for free to grant you access, provided that you're a licensed institution, as I mentioned earlier. And then you need to take advantage of the technology. So using different platforms, technologies, you should be able to connect the dots. If not, again, somebody else can do it for you. And what it needs to be done is that you need to convert that data into actionable intelligence to fence off your systems. In other words, you need to be one step ahead of what's going on in the dark web, in the mid-web, etc., in order to fence your systems for future threats. And finally, this will be my last slide because I'm running out of time. Future-proofing technology, it's also about taking advantage of expert systems, like, for example, artificial intelligence system, large language models. This is an example of what many banks are doing today. They're actually training their systems using fraud and genuine transactions made, in this case, by international transfers and domestic transfers. So they are teaching the system how to recognize them, so to avoid false positives. And the beauty of this system compared to the old ones is that it is updated on a daily basis using the cyber threat, cyber intelligence information that I mentioned earlier, so that these system becomes intelligent and it releases a new model every day. So you can have two scores. One would be a dynamic score, the other would be a static score, and at the end of the day, you will be in a sweet spot to be able to fence off your systems. You know that, unfortunately, being bulletproof in terms of cybersecurity is increasingly difficult, but with new technologies and also with new techniques like zero trust, which is possibly the next the next, well, actually not possibly, it's already happening, is how cybersecurity is being treated today. So we cannot trust anybody, not even within our systems, not even our employees, and that's the only way we can actually fence off our systems with insider threats as well as outside threats. So without any more, I'd like to thank you all for being here. I'd like to thank also the organizers for having given us the opportunity to be here, and I'm quite happy to take any questions afterwards. Thank you very much.